Away. Terrific. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Casey O'Brien, and I serve as the Assistant Vice Chancellor for Student Success and Transformational Initiatives here at SUNY System. And I want to, once again, for those returning, or if you're new, welcome you to another session in our Transformation Fund Community of Practice series. One of the key dimensions of the Transformation Fund was to create a space for campuses to share best practices on how they're using their transformation funding to support economic mobility, seamless transfer, essential student supports, and other topics that are aligned with funded strategies across the system. We're thrilled today to have the opportunity to hear from some really terrific speakers. They're going to share how their transformation funding improved operational efficiency at their campuses. I'll introduce our speakers in just a moment, but first want to thank Jennifer Snyder and Lisa Raposo from the SUNY Center for Professional Development, as well as Julia Lang from our office for their help organizing this community of practice, and most especially to our speakers from the campuses, who I'll introduce in just a moment. 2 presentations for you today. Please feel free to drop any questions in the chat, which we will monitor as we go, but we will have an open mic opportunity to ask questions at the end. So we plan to have plenty of time for Q&A at the close of the session. So without further ado, our first speaker is from SUNY Morrisville. Dr. Suzan Harkness is the provost at SUNY Morrisville, and she's going to talk to us about their implementation of the Ruffalo Lowell Levitz, or RNL College Survey Inventory, to drive retention and student success. So Dr. Harkness, pleasure to see you, and the floor is yours.
All right, thank you, and good afternoon. I will begin sharing my screen. Go. And you can let me know if you do not see it, but happy to be here today to share the ways in which we used the transformational funds as part of the transformational funds to increase our operational efficiencies. Trying to move the screen. Uh-oh, not moving. It's not moving. Okay, I'm trying to advance it. Let me stop share and go back. We tested this and it worked.
No worries at all. Jen, maybe you could chime in if.
Here we go. Let me try it this way. Maybe. I'm beginning. There we go. Let's try that. There we go. All right. Advance the screen. So using the transformational funds to increase our operational efficiency, again, we did use the Ruffalo Lowell Levitz CSI, but what we wanted to do first is figure out ways we can address some of our campus challenges. And so we did a kind of a need analysis through working across the campus with a student success council. And so we really needed to address some critical retention issues, our persistence, engagement, and advising challenges. And so we identified the Ruffalo Lowell Levitz RNL College Student Inventory as a tool to use. It's a leading tool used by over 1,400 institutions and 2.6 million students across the country. So it's a wealth of data, and it's one of the leading indicators. The cost of implementing this tool is about $12,000 to $14,000 a year, and it covers, we just purchased it to cover our first year full-time and transfer students. And we began implementing it in the fall of 2023 with our first year full-time students only. And in the spring, we did our first year full-time spring admits and our transfer students. And then this fall, we did first year full-time and transfer students. And so we made sure we had enough licensees and seats for the instrument. So what is the tool? So it really identifies students at risk. And it measures some non-cognitive indicators of student success. It also gives us detailed information around academic motivations of at-risk students and the receptivity towards help and student services. And the really nice thing is it provides us with individualized student reports that we can share with our advisors and mentors and success coaches to intervene and work with students. So what were some of the expected outcomes that we had using this tool as we wanted to implement it on campus? So one, we wanted to increase faculty and staff awareness of our first-year student needs. We wanted to increase the use of support services, wanted to make sure our students knew about our services and were going to use them. We also wanted to increase advising and success coaching and training faculty on how to be better at interventions and how to reach the students, because sometimes faculty had said that they don't really know how to reach out to students. They don't know how to begin those conversations. They don't know who their students really are. And we wanted to really increase the faculty engagement with student success. So not only giving them their PIN to register, but to really get to know the students, get to know their names, get to know them on a personal level, because that will help the students feel that they belong on campus. It'll help with retention and persistence. We also wanted to increase the identification of a critical population deficiencies. We had some anecdotal evidence of where we knew of populations on campus that we weren't serving very well, but we didn't have the evidence. We just kind of had a feeling about it, and this provided us that evidence. And obviously we wanted to increase our retention and persistence, and that again will play into our increased graduation rates. So who are our students and what are their needs? What did we find by implementing the CSI? So once you implement it, you can aggregate the data. So this is our CSI results, our infographic that I put together from our fall 2023 students. So we had 744 incoming students and a 61% completion rate on the CSI. It's a 100-question survey. People say, oh, well, you know, students are just going to go through the 100 questions and check any box. Well, actually not, because the reliability and validity indicator of this instrument, we score a 6.9 out of 7. So the students are taking it seriously and giving us accurate information. And so what this tells us is the national norm is 50%. So if we look at our fall 2023, we look at the overall risk indicator, the box on the far left, and we see that total 71% of our students have an overall risk indicator, meaning it measures the students' overall inclination to drop out of college before they finish. So we are above the national average. And 48% of our students in the fall were above the 80th percentile, pretty critical. The predicted academic difficulty was a little bit above the national average. Educational stress, we were above the national average. And interestingly enough, our receptivity towards help was lower than the national average, meaning the students are reporting that they have overall risk and predicted academic difficulty and stress, but they don't want help. We know it, but leave us alone. And so we looked at the spring results, the same, you know, the first time first year students and coming in the spring. Again, we only had 94 of them. Majority of them were transfer students. We had a 61% completion rate. So it's you know, about the same. It's pretty much exactly the same as we had in the fall, but we're seeing a little bit of change. So there's a slight change in the students because, as we know, the majority of these students were our transfer students, and they already know how to college. So they're going to have a little bit less stress than the 17-year-olds or 18-year-olds who are coming in. And what we notice is that there's this, you know, a small change, but mostly the change we saw is that there was a little bit greater overall. I mean, there's a lower indication of overall risk. So from the fall to the spring, they dropped 10 percentage points of overall risk factors. Again, we attribute this to being majority of transfer students. And if we look at this fall's numbers, we just finished collecting all this data. And again, we implement this before the students get on campus, and within the first couple of weeks, students are there. And so what we're seeing now, you know, is some changes. So the overall risk index, so again, it measures the likelihood, the overall inclination of students dropping out before they complete, is lower than fall 2023. Our predicted academic difficulty, which measures really, you know, the probability of students having lower grades, failing their classes, again, it was about the same as last fall. Educational stress measures students' feelings of distress about coming to college and their fears. Is again about the same as last fall. But what we do see is a change in the receptivity. So this fall, the students coming in were slightly more receptive to getting help. So we were wondering, well, why is that? And what we're thinking it might be is because this incoming fall class had a greater probability of students sitting 4 years in class in high school. So they already were engaging with other peers, engaging with support services, because they were in class, most of them in class all 4 years of high school, versus the other classes before them were not. So we're thinking that this is part of the reason why the students are a little bit more open to receiving help and support. And so how do we use this data? So if we quickly look at, this is just a 3-semester comparison. So we're using this data to tell our story. So you can see from left to right or right to left, whichever way you look at it, you can see that the number of students. So this fall, we brought in 897 students versus last fall, 744, with no transfer students measured in the fall of 23, but we did measure transfer students. We see the increase in the percentage of students completing it. So last fall, only 62% of the students completed the survey instrument. This year, 73% completed. So we're increasing our response rate. We are higher than a national norm of students completing this. We do a really good job of getting this out to our students. And we can see the trending of the data and risk factors from fall, spring, and fall 23 changing a little bit over time. And so the numbers are trending in the right direction. Does it mean that the students that the CSI is causing this? No, there's no causation, but there's correlation. And this is good to see this information. So what do we do with this data? So we get the data and it provides individualized student reports. So every student who completes the survey, we get a very detailed report on the student and all the 100 questions they asked. And some of these are very intrusive questions. Some of them are more general questions. We package up these reports and we provide it to our advisors, but we train the advisors on how to interpret the reports and how to engage with the students. We have cheat sheets, conversation starters. So how do you have that conversation? What's the first thing you want to say to the student? It's like, hi, come on in and see me. Here's your report. I mean, the students are eager to get the reports, but we need to help break the ice to have those conversations, because you could say, well, I see on here on your report that you have financial risk, that you report that you have financial needs. Can we talk about your financial needs a little bit? Maybe it's that we need to refer them to a scholarship or the financial aid office, or maybe it's they need to set up a payment plan. Maybe their parents or they don't have anybody to support them financially. Maybe they don't have enough money for a book, so we can get them into emergency funding. It talks about, maybe food insecurity, what they want to, major in. It also, speaks to their career ambitions, and we can point them in the direction of career advising or tutoring. So it really provides us an opportunity to have those conversations and the students to be seen. And then the advisors will schedule the appointments and follow-up appointments and document in Starfish. So other advisors, other success coaches can read the notes to follow up with the students and say, hey, we see that you had this conversation, you were referred to counseling, or you referred to financial aid. How did that go? And so we make good use of our other tools. And so what are some of our indicators of success? So the CSI does matter, is what we find. Perhaps one might say off the bat, well, the students who take this 100-question survey and complete it are just more engaged than students who are more serious. That could be true, but we also see some really key indicators. So nearly 17% of the students who complete the CSI have a higher persistence retention rate. CSI completers were also half as likely to be dismissed or experience attrition due to disciplinary actions. CSI completers were almost 52% more likely to end the semester and academic year in good academic standing. And CSI completion yields higher retention rates for those who complete at nearly 74% versus those who did not complete at 57%, significant. And the CSI completion rates have increased from 62 to 73%. So again, we're doing a really good job. So from the data, what can we do better? One, we can optimize our retention planning, and we can predict which students are more likely to be at risk and how to develop intervention plans even before they get to campus. And so we can serve them from the minute they hit campus. We can have information in their packets that are personalized. We can intervene earlier and connect the students to the most appropriate resources. And we can develop initiatives to serve student populations that have been identified that are at greatest risk. And right now, what we've identified is our multi-ethnic and Black males. They are 30% more likely to not succeed. So we have a significant challenge on our hands to serve our multi-ethnic Black males. And they're also the largest population of students who do not complete the survey. So what is the financial impact? So again, we spend money on this and we see all this, but there is an ROI. So up to 231 CSI completers who ended the semester in good standing at spring 2024, that translated into $966,000 in tuition funds, tuition revenue coming back this fall. That's not even adding on room and board. And of the 325 students eligible to return who completed the CSI, who were on maybe probation or our academic rebuild program, and they're returning this fall, that represented nearly $1.4 million in tuition revenue and room and board. So there is an ROI, there is an argument to be had that this is a tool that not only impacts the student success, but also helps, with our financial bottom line. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to share some of our successes and how we're using our transformational funds. I want to thank the SUNY system that we really appreciate having this opportunity to have these funds to help our students succeed, persist, and generate impactful results towards advancing our students' success initiatives at SUNY Morrisville. So if you need to reach me, there's my email address. I'm happy to answer any questions at this time. Or if we save them to the end, Casey, I don't know how you want to do it at the end of this or the end of the whole presentation, but thank you.
Sure. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Harkness. And I think what we'll do is we'll save the questions to the end, just so that the next speakers can go, and then we'll just have a Q&A more generally at the end. But thank you so much for sharing. And again, if anyone has questions, let's save them to the end, but feel free to drop them in the chat too. So our next speakers are from SUNY Ulster. SUNY Ulster used a portion of their transformation funding to create a Student Navigation and Alliance, or SNAC, Center to help students address barriers. So I'm pleased to introduce Melanie Quick, Director of Student Accounts, and Dr. Marie Kropp, Interim Dean of Student Success. So SUNY Ulster, the floor is yours.
Mute. Okay. Thank you for inviting us today. So I'm Marie Kropp. I am right now the Interim Dean of Student Success. That's my day job. And then and Melanie Quick, the Director of Student Accounts. We were both tasked to sort of stand up this Student Navigation Alliance Center, and it is what we used a part of the transformation funds that the college received to sort of start the initiative. I gotta advance my slides. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, sure. So we found students were self-navigating through several departments to solve problems or obtain answers to the basic questions. Our students were sharing the difficulty they had navigating the college and being passed off from office to office when they had questions. SNAC was seen as a means to centralize our resources, provide students with a student services model, connecting students with personnel who could address questions from many departments and stop students from swirling from department to department.
So it was an initiative that engaged our financial aid office, our registrar's office, student accounts, and then advising as well. And what we, what the hope was is that we would sort of stop this shuffling from office to office, that there would be better collaboration between some of the student services departments who right now or previously had kind of worked in campus silos. And then also sort of being a place that sort of is a place that sort of normalizes students having questions and looking for answers. Let's see how I advance the slide. Here we go.
So then the questions started. Where? Who should be involved? How do we best train our staff to staff the center? There was, and maybe still is, some skepticism on the part of the staff and the faculty, particularly around whether the center would alleviate student traffic in some of the busier offices.
So, I mean, these were some of the questions we first sort of asked when we were implementing the center. We were lucky that we found a partner in the library, which is already sort of a natural place for students to go when they had questions. And it just so happened that the library had some space that was underused. So we were able to put the center in the library, which has been really great because it is already a place where students congregate. Then we brought together those partner offices, the registrar, the financial aid. We brought in admissions to sort of talk about the ways that we could collaborate on some of those frontline services. Then we had to train people, right? Because the staffing was all going to happen internally. So we needed to use staff that was already on the ground. So we talked about what that training would look like. And again, using our partners in those student services offices, we created this 2-day training because what we imagined was that we would staff it with people who know student account staff, but then also what we call generalists. So people who know a little bit about a lot of things, but are able to help the students navigate some of those more complicated things. And then we also, initially we talked about only doing, right, training for the people who were going to volunteer for SNAC. But then we decided to open it up to anyone who wanted to know more about student services. And we were a little surprised, I think, by how many people who weren't front-facing student services providers who sort of volunteered to attend our training. So we had about 25 staff member attend these 2-day trainings that we coordinated.
Ultimately, our goal wasn't just to launch the center, but we wanted to advance the student-facing departments and the staff in those departments as well, and work on transforming the college as a whole, building enthusiasm, training, removing silos and barriers.
So we were overwhelmed by, we have program assistants who wanted to be a part of it, administrative support staff, which meant that Melanie and I needed to navigate some union things and who works for who. But we have the center is open from 8:30 to 4:30, which is the business hours of the college. It has been open every day since the start of the semester. We have a regular rotation of personnel who staff the center, although Melanie is very conscious that we put certain offices on certain days. So we know that financial aid is going to be there Monday. We know that student accounts will be there Thursday. We left it up to the departments to decide who would sort of take those shifts throughout the week. And the idea is that we staffed it and the equipment is all there so that people can do their day jobs, but then also respond to the traffic with the students who are walking in for help. We did decide early on that we were gonna, that SNAC was gonna handle add drops and withdrawals because that's a time at the start of the year that everybody knows add drop is like a terror week. So we handled add drops in SNAC. That's where the students were directed to go. And I think we saw over 100 students the first 5 days of school starting. And we also were able to co-locate 2 professional advisors. So their offices sort of sit behind the center, and they are able to support those generalists. So, somebody in the registrar's office who might need help sort of with academic advising. And that's been a really positive thing to be able to have those academic advisors there as extra support. And yes, of course, we had to provide snacks. That was sort of a non-negotiable for our president, was that if we were going to call it snack, we had to have snacks.
So the enthusiasm, Marie talked about this a little bit. Once launched, we had some unexpected enthusiasm. The coordinator of the college's Presidential Scholars Program, which is a scholarship for first-generation students, was happy to have the resource to help navigate her student issues. She would bring them over to us, especially the first few weeks of the semester, and was thrilled with the outcome and how we could provide answers to various questions and topics and satisfy her needs. SNAC staff has taken ownership of the center. And by ownership, we mean decorating, collaborating with the library to feature book displays. This month, the displays feature disability history and LGBTQ history. We have the professional advisors that Marie mentioned have made presentations in our FYE classrooms and sharing our swag across the campus. SNAC has become a single source of information on how the college is informed about barriers and obstacles our students contend with. There are times when colleagues pose student questions or dilemmas to SNAC personnel to help untangle the issues. And through all of SNAC's resources, we have been able to successfully resolve every issue that's been brought to our attention thus far. We just learned, for example, the way Brightspace is set up for some instructors has all assignments defaulted to 0 or F. And we were able to bring that concern to our cabinet to address the practice with our faculty chairs.
And then there have been sort of some I know that the first couple of weeks, Dr. Buckley, our president, would visit pretty frequently, and she would say, where do you think these students went before SNAC? Because we keep a log of who comes through, what they're asking us questions about, how confident the personnel feels in answering the questions, because we're hoping that that will help us guide future training for the personnel who sits, who sort of staffs the center. We have created an advisory board, which includes student accounts, financial aid, advising is represented. We have admissions as part of that group as well. We've also implemented these kind of short student surveys that we have like raffle prizes, and we'll ask the students something like, when do you prefer to take classes? Or what was the last one? Or we had one that was, how often do you check degree works? What has been the greatest success you've had this semester? And, we just pay for the campus with those. And then the other part that has been really encouraging is that now each office has staff that is trained across all different platforms. So, the registrar's office can answer a little bit about financial aid, and our advisors can talk a little bit about student accounts and how certain things impact student, where in the past there was a lot of shuffling students around, like, oh, I'm not a financial aid counselor, you have to go see someone in financial aid, or I don't know anything about student accounts, you have to go see somebody in student accounts. So that has been definitely an institutional change here. And then the other piece is that we have a direct line to the cabinet. So this sort of repository of barriers or issues that students are having, we are able to kind of push those issues up to sort of inform the cabinet about what our students might be struggling with. Like in the first week of school, we learned that some of the bus lines to some of our farther, the southern part of our county were not predictable enough, and they didn't run enough. And so, you know, right away, the chief of staff was able to sort of get out a call to the bus provider to talk about how we could alleviate those issues. So that, again, another way that we've kind of been able to streamline what the issues are that we see among our students, right?
Mhm.
So, I mean, there has been, again, I think there's probably, I mean, we're still evaluating, you know, certainly for the registrar, we have cut down on foot traffic. We'll see when financial aid sort of kicks in, because we have offered to do the financial aid applications within SNAC. It's still an open question if we are able to sort of reduce some of that traffic in all the offices. But I think for the most part, I know I can speak for Melanie, I do it all the time. I think we both feel very proud that we were able to sort of launch it and put it together, and also to have the enthusiasm that people have shared with us.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Kropp and Melanie. This, I think this demonstrates just how important the transformation funding was to allowing campuses to explore new ideas, and in both cases, at Morrisville and at Ulster, it sounds like they did just that. So at this time, we do have plenty of time for questions, so feel free to unmute at any time, drop them in the chat if that's what you'd like to do. But both of our folks are here to answer any questions you have. So I'll stop talking here and give people a chance to ask away if they have them. We do have a smaller group today, a more intimate group. I know a lot of folks are watching the recording, so not as many people in the audience today, but questions? Questions for Morrisville, questions for Ulster? I have a question. So I guess this is for each of you. The transformation funding, of course, was one-time funding. And just curious on your campus if you've started to have conversations about how you're going to sustain this moving forward, and try to institutionalize these into, you know, the operating budget. If you've thought about it, don't want to put you on the spot.
Yes, I mean, we have, and I mean, luckily, you know, these funds will carry us, you know, a little bit of time to do this. But I mean, I think for me, really making the connections on the ROI and the you know, tuition revenue and our room and board that we're able to generate through these interventions and through the persistence of our students and the conversations that come out of the reporting and the students' engagement in the CSI, that I hope to be able to make a case to be able to increase my budget, although it's kind of hard. You know, we're flatline budget models, and so the question will be, well, what are you going to give up for that? What are you going to let go? Where's $14,000 going to come from? What else are you going to do? When I have a lean budget, it's going to be hard pressed, but I definitely will be making the case for how can we continue to use this tool. It just makes sense, and it will continue to make sense as we see more and more students persist and you know, just engage in ways that we've not seen them engage before. So definitely looking at how I can make the case and make the argument. That's why I'm collecting my ROI data.
Thank you.
I mean, Melanie and I are often talk about sustainability and how we are going to keep the good work up. I mean, we are fortunate that we, you know, the staff that's staffing it right now are all campus employees already. I think for us, it'll be more than funding, maybe in some ways. It'll be us being able to convince these skeptics that it actually is a better way of doing business in a way. And I think like the registrars sold, they're thrilled that they're not handling ad drops. So figuring out ways. And I think that's the part that has been institutionally truly transformational, is this kind of core team that is looking to guide it with these student-facing offices sort of working together to kind of create it and what it could be as we move, as it morphs and changes.
Of course, a lot of campuses are moving towards kind of a welcome center, one-stop model, because traditionally higher ed, we often get into the habit of, well, you have to go talk to the bursar for that. You have to go talk to the registrar for that. Financial aid, especially, a lot of students get, you know, deputized to financial aid. So it's encouraging to hear that you're making efforts to try to also bring that into the SNAC model. But I understand that's a much heavier lift, especially with a lot of the uncertainties and questions surrounding the FAFSA, especially last year and going into this year, no doubt. But if other folks don't have questions, that's okay. Feel free to send me an email, however, afterward if something comes up, and I'm happy to connect you with the appropriate people. But I just want to make a few announcements before we close. We have another session coming up on November 7th. We're going to be hearing from Herkimer Community College and SUNY Indiana about the creation of a Refresh and Restart program and the Heritage Language Institute. So that should be very interesting. We're also excited in December, UAlbany is going to be presenting on their Great Danes 101 course. What this course is offered to parents of new students. It's a semester-long online course that tries to help parents demystify the college experience and also offer guidance to parents on how they can best support their loved ones through the college going process. So that's a really outstanding idea, and just excited to host them in December to tell us more about that. There will be an evaluation of today's session afterwards, so please take a few moments to respond to that so we can continue to build programming that meets your needs. And once again, huge thank you to SUNY Ulster and to SUNY Morrisville. Melanie, Marie, Suzan, thank you so much, and thank you for our attendance today. We hope to see you at the next couple, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.